Hi there, Michael here. One of the more annoying chores you have to do when working in Atmos is the amount of automation you need to deal with when moving sound objects through three-dimensional space. It is not only the volume automation, it is also things like the automation of the positional information or the object size that you need to think about. In today's video, we are going to check out a plugin that has the potential to make your life a lot easier. The plugin is called SnappySnap by Electric Smudge, and it is a tool that allows you to automate between entire parameter configurations instead of individual parameters. The plugin actually has not been designed specifically for immersive audio, but as you will see, immersive audio might be one of its killer applications. Before we open up SnappySnap, a quick comment. This is not a sponsored video. I actually came across this plugin purely by chance. And as soon as I saw it, I knew this was something my audience might be interested in, so I just bought it right on the spot. And with that being said, let's open up Ableton and check out SnappySnap. So I'm going to work with Ableton today, and I'm also going to work on a Mac, but everything that I'm going to show you works on Windows as well, and it should work in exactly the same way on any other digital audio workstation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of demonstrate the capabilities of SnappySnap in a session that could become the starting point for a Sony 360 Real Audio session. So we're going to use the Walkmix Creator. I could also use a Dolby Atmos solution, but I'm just going to go with the Sony Walkmix Creator today for reasons. Now the session that I have here is very, very simple. I'm just using a preset of Tune, and I'm going to just kind of take a little loop and going to move that around in three-dimensional space in order to see how SnappySnap can help us with that. So I'm going to use the Blue Ocean preset, which is a really nice one. So let's just have a brief listen what we have here. Yeah, really nice. I like Tune, it has the best presets, in my opinion. Anyway, so we're going to move that around in three-dimensional space with the help of the Walkmix Creator. So let me first add the Walkmix Creator. Now, in case you are not aware of how Sony 360 RA or Real Audio works, I have a video that I did a while back, and I'm going to have a link, or going to put a link in the description where you can check out how to actually work with the Walkmix Creator. But once again, what I'm going to do is actually working with any immersive audio solutions. If you're working with the Fiedel Audio Dolby Atmos Composer, or with the external Dolby Atmos Renderer, or with the MPEG H production suite, doesn't matter. You can use SnappySnap in exactly the same way. I'm just going to use the Sony version because I haven't used it for a while. Once again, just for reasons. So let me just add the Walkmix Creator. So let's just search for Walkmix Creator. Now the way the Walkmix Creator works is that you actually have one plugin that serves as the renderer as well as the panner. And the idea is that you put the renderer on the main channel or the main track, and then you kind of tell the system that yes, this is the one that sits on the master bus. And then we're going to simply add an instance to our little track here that holds the tune. And I'm just going to show you how that would be normally done. Now, normally the way this would work, well, first of all, we need to enable that here. But the way this would work is that you would just move the objects around. Now, in this particular case, we have two objects, a left object and a right object. So essentially coming from left and right channel. So what I would do is I would simply play the audio, and then I could move the objects around. And I would have to automate that. I can kind of separate them out, and I can do the left one independently. And if you do any automation, you would have to automate, first of all, the parameters that give the position of the object. In some immersive audio systems, you also have the possibility to change the size of the object. Now, in the Walkmix Creator, you can, for example, also change the gain. So if I go to the left one, so I essentially can change the gain here maybe to -2 and so forth. And then essentially you would automate that. And that obviously, after a while, becomes a lot of automation. So the question now is, can we simplify that? And the answer is yes, we can, with the help of SnappySnap. So let's delete that instance of the Walkmix Creator again, because we're going to replace that with SnappySnap. So let me kind of delete that again. And what we're going to do is we're going to add an instance of SnappySnap. Snappy Snap comes in two versions, an instrument version and an effects version. So it allows you to put that either where the instrument would be, so you can kind of create a wrapper around an instrument and kind of simplify automations of an entire instrument, or an effects. Now, in our particular case, we have an effect, so we're going to use the Snappy Snap effects version here, and this is Snappy Snap, and it looks actually pretty cool. Now, the way this works is just as a wrapper around plugins that you want to automate. So instead of what it allows you to do effectively is it allows you to automate entire configurations of parameters, entire snapshots, instead of individual parameters. And for us, this is going to be helpful because we can create a couple of different snapshots of where the positions of my objects are, and then simply use Snappy Snap in order to automate between those positions instead of automating every single parameter individually. Now, how does this work? Well, very, very simple. We just need to add the plugin. So let me just add the Audio Futures WalkMix Creator. This is the one we're going to add. We're going to load that in. I can kind of look at the plugin by simply clicking on the Show Plugin button. That will open that up. Once again, I need to make sure that it is enabled and then essentially go into the panel. And if I now play the audio, essentially I should hear the audio in exactly the same way we heard it before, because once again, Snappy Snap is just a plugin wrapper that kind of just simplifies automation. So let me just play the audio again. So if you move that around once again, and let's maybe kind of separate left and right. So let's move that to the bottom. Let's move that maybe kind of here to the top. And let's maybe have the left one a little softer. Let me just kind of, I need to kind of set that up here. So here, the left one, right? So let's go to -2. So that makes the left channel a little softer. And what I can do now is I can simply create snaps, and I have the possibility to create 12 snaps. So let's just add a snap here, click on the button here, and then I have this one snap. So if I now go back to the WalkMix Creator and move these objects around, let me just move them around, and then maybe kind of for the left one, let's set that back to 0 again. I can create a second snap, and then maybe kind of do a third one just for fun. So this one is here in the back, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, let's move it more to the top, right? So you have it in the back. You get the picture, and I can create a third snap. And then I see here in this void, I see the individual snaps, and I can now switch between them. And let me just arrange that a little so that you guys see what's going on here. Well, I don't have enough space, but that's fine. If I click on each individual snap, it will sort of change the parameters accordingly. So it's also going to, if you look here at the gain, it will actually also change the gain. And I can not only do that, I can actually interpolate between those. So if I kind of take that slider here, I can actually go from the first snap, and I can interpolate here to the second one, and then to the third one. I have the possibility to give it a little bit of elasticity, which means that if I have, for example, a very jerky kind of automation, it will actually smooth that out. So if I turn on elastic here, what it will do is it will kind of have a little bit of elasticity, so that you are not really required to have a very accurate automation lane. It's going to smooth that out for you, and there are different levels of elasticity that you have, so you can have it either slow, so that would actually kind of give it a little bit of time, or you can have it medium, or you can have it fast, or you can turn it off completely if you want that. And then you also have this little button here, or this little knob here, that allows you to interpolate between them in a completely different way. And that is actually really, really cool. Now, a couple of additional things, a couple of additional features that I want to point out. First of all, you can also use MIDI in order to trigger the individual snaps. So if you want, you can use a separate MIDI track that holds the information when the object should move into certain positions. This is actually kind of really, really comfortable. And then there are also a couple of other options that are probably not going to be that particularly useful for our particular application. So what I'm going to do is the developer Electric Smudge actually created a really nice video where it goes through all the options that this plugin has. And I'm going to leave a link in the description, and I encourage you to check that out because it's actually really cool. There's a breeding option that allows you to breed new presets from or pre-snaps from already existing snaps. And then you have these macro controls that allow you to take out individual parameters that you don't want the plugin to automate and kind of put them into a macro control that you can automate separately. There are two things I want to point out, two things I think are important to mention. The first one is that you can actually link individual instances of SnappySnap. So if you have multiple objects that you want to kind of move in the same way, you can technically do that by turning on the link button here that will link the individual SnappySnap kind of instances. And then you essentially what you would do is you would select one that leads everything. So the leader is then kind of the one that kind of makes the decisions of where everything has to move to. So this is really cool. Now there's one more thing that I think is super interesting and super unique, and that is this MCP button. Now, if you are not familiar with MCP, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to connect the plugin to a large language model. So it sort of creates an interface that allows a large language model to interact directly with this plugin. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to use a large language model in helping you make decisions of where to move things to. So you could say, for example, this track is a guitar track. Please move that to a place that is appropriate for that particular track. And it can actually do that. You can do that either through a large language model by typing in your instructions, or you can literally, if you're using a dictation system, you can literally talk to your plugin. And that is actually really cool. Unfortunately, at the moment, I couldn't get that to run. And the reason for that is that the MCP version that SnappySnap requires is incompatible with the MCP version that I have on my system, and I have not yet figured out how to remedy the situation. But once I've actually figured it out, I plan to do an additional video that shows exactly that, because I think this is one of the few instances where a plugin developer actually created something that uses artificial or generative artificial intelligence in a very useful way. Now, one thing I need to point out is that if you are uncomfortable in using commercial large language models because they use so much energy or kind of all kinds of things, you can also use a local LLM. So you can download an open source LLM and connect SnappySnap to the local model, so everything runs locally and you are not going to have to deal with anything that is out there. So this is really cool. So once again, once I get that to run, I'll probably do a separate video. And if you out there get that to run and kind of find that interesting, let me know. I'd really be interesting to hear about how you guys think about these types of applications. I think this is actually a really useful application of artificial intelligence in the creative process, because it does help kind of setting up a workflow that is still creative, but sort of uses some sort of agentic AI in order to assist you in creating something unique. So what's my final verdict? Well, I think this is an extremely strong first version of a plugin that could become a must-have in almost anybody's music production toolkit. First of all, it is very good to see that SnappySnap is reasonably priced at $55. No complaint there. And it's just a lot of fun to play with. And I'm super intrigued by the inclusion of MCP capabilities. This might be the first time I'm seeing an audio plugin developer who has put real thought into what type of generative AI integration a music producer might find useful. Unfortunately, I could not yet check that out because of some bug in the MCP configuration, but as soon as I get that working, I will most likely make a follow-up video about how that could be useful in immersive audio production. The only thing that would make SnappySnap better, in my opinion, would be multi-channel plugin support, but that is probably the immersive audio nerd in me talking. Electric Smudge offers a free light version with limited features, so my recommendation is to check it out and see if it's useful for your workflow. And if you like it, it's only $55. Well, that's everything for today. If you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comment section below or join our free Discord server. The invite link is in the description. And don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on all things Dolby Atmos and immersive audio. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.